welcome to this episode of the Darts World Weekly podcast. My name is AJ Emston Toft.
And I'm Harry Masterson.
How are we doing this week, Harry?
Not bad, AJ. Obviously, you told me this week that you've gone to Yarmouth for the week. How have you found that?
Yes, a good old drive. Well, it's going to be twice. I've got another drive later on today, but yeah, work's sending me here, there, and everywhere. But we've still got plenty of darts to talk about.
Absolutely, there's been a lot on since we last spoke.
And speaking of which, let's start now, and let's start with the news. So let's start the news as we normally do with Thursday's Premier League, which was in Exeter this week, and again, a great week of darts.
Absolutely, and Nathan Aspinall up and running for the Premier League. We were saying a bit ago, AJ, that me and you were a little bit worried about him and Peter Wright in terms of not winning a game in the league and not earning a point. But Aspinall, he's now in the race for the playoffs. He's got 8 points in the space of 2 weeks, so you've got to say fair play.
We'll get into the Premier League Predictor League later on, where we both had stinkers, but it just goes to show. I mean, everyone's in really good form, and on the day, anyone can beat anyone. So, I mean, if you're a gambling man or a gambling person, these are really, really difficult to call, and it's a coin toss each and every game.
Exactly. Every game at the minute in the Premier League, I said this last week, they're all either 6-4 or 6-5. So that makes it very, very difficult to predict. And going back on to Nathan Aspinall as well, we all know when we watch him play, he's a fighter. He always will take it to either a 10th or an 11th leg in a match. And we're now starting to see that his fight in this competition will start to show, and he's in the race for the playoffs.
Yes, and again, another high level of performance by all players, all in the 90s as a minimum, and you had a few 100 plus 100 plus averages, and Nathan, he averaged 97 for the day, over the 3 matches, which just goes to show the standard is phenomenal.
Nathan said in an interview last week, I think when he won, that he reckons that all of the players that are in the Premier League are the top 8 players in the world. Do you agree with that?
On current form, yes. Yeah. Because, the averages speak for themselves. Yes, there was blips at the start of this season with Peter Wright and Nathan, respectively, not firing on all cylinders, but now they've seemed to have caught up with the pace and caught up with the standard. I've got to say this is the best 8 that you could probably have, which, at the start of the season, not a lot of people were agreeing with.
And you look at the every week, every player has their week where they are on the top form. Nathan Aspinall's had 1 night win so far. Michael Smith's had a night win. Obviously, Van Gerwen's had 3. Do you reckon this week could be the case where we have another new winner, or does one of the players that have already won take another night win?
You're trying to get some information on me just before the Predictor League, but you look you look at the bracket, and yes, there is different games, but you look at the routes and you're going, you've got to play out of your skin to win it, and all of them are capable of doing it. So it is extremely difficult to predict now, which makes it more interesting for us.
And speaking of Michael Van Gerwen, it was the end of his winning streak in the Premier League last week. He lost 6-3 to the world champion Luke Humphries. Do you expect a bounce back this week for Van Gerwen, or do you think this could be another week where we see 0 points? Because he's playing Rob Cross in Brighton, and Rob Cross being from Hastings, it could be a bit of the crowd could be on his side, with it being a bit of a local sort of week for him.
Yes, and these two seem to be always seem to have good matches way back when, in that very first encounter at the UK Open. They seem to be throwing haymakers at each other. again, it's a really tough one to call because you can see Rob Cross is on the verge of getting somewhere within the Premier League. He's pulling out these really good performances and had a really good run at the UK Open. Played some outstanding darts, so it's really tough to call. And I'm looking forward to the Predictor League, but at the same time, it's I've got 4 coins with me, so that's how close I think it's going to be.
I feel like I'm grilling you this week in terms of the questions for the Premier League. I'm not trying to get any answers out of you. I'm just
Of course you're not.
I'm not. I'm not.
So so amazing performances all round in the Premier League, and as we said, a great win for Nathan Aspinall. But looking at these stats, I mean, you had plenty of 100 plus averages. You had Rob Cross with the highest of the evening with 109, which is breathtaking against Gerwin Price, and then both Luke Little and Michael Smith averaging over 100 there. Again, the standard is there to see, and it's great television. It's great for the promotion for the game of darts.
I think that Rob Cross average you said, I think, was his highest average ever recorded on the telly. So another little milestone for him last week.
Yeah, just in time for an epic game with MVG.
Absolutely.
So obviously a great night of darts on the Thursday, but we had a absolutely tremendous weekend at the UK Open.
Absolutely. Dimitri Van den Berg becoming a 2-time PDC major champion this weekend in Mineheads, defeating Luke Humphries in the last leg decider. And do you know what, AJ, going into that tournament, I'll sit here and openly admit I did not expect Dimitri Van den Berg to be the winner come the end of the weekend.
No, I mean, it's nice to see a different name up there. It's not, and not one of the Premier League 8, but obviously Dimitri's had experience in the Premier League. But it was just a really good weekend of darts. It was proper darts from top to bottom, and the averages were fantastic. The games were fantastic. Everything was close games. There wasn't really a really bad game, and you had some performances from some of the qualifiers. I mean, mentioned last week Jensen Walker. I mean, what a celebration that was in the last leg decider.
And another qualifier with a really good run was, in fact, Joe Croft. He ended up reaching the 3rd round of the UK Open this year, and obviously the Rileys qualifiers. I think we saw Leonard Gates make the 4th round as well. So we did see some runs from them on the Friday, and again, it just shows to show that the tour card holders and the non-tour card holders, like, you can get these little upsets in this competition.
So the game between the qualifier, Riley's qualifier, Leonard Gates, and Conan Whitehead from the Challenge Tour. I mean, I think they've played against each other on the MODUS Super Series, but that game, I mean, Conan went off to an absolute flyer, and then Leonard Gates just kept coming back, and getting the win, which was a really good game to watch. And there was great games all around. I mean, unfortunately, my Swinton teammate Harry Gregory, he was 5-2 up, and but Rhys Griffiths getting the win on their 6-5. I mean, again, some great games all the way from the beginning of the first match, and then Sunday accumulating in a spicy affair, let's say, between the two. Luke Humphries and Dimitri Van den Berg. What was your take on the composure gate, let's call it?
Well, in my opinion, I don't see the problem with it, because I think in the past you've seen players who have like a slow sort of action whenever they go to when they're at the oche. So I don't understand why now it's all of a sudden a bit of a crime in terms of him taking his time. Like, at the end of the day, you're on the stage, you need to do what's right for you in the heads, because it is a mental sport. And I think if you've got a routine, I think the other players just got to get used to that. And I'm sure with how Dimitri conducted himself in that final, other players will know what to expect when they play him in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it myself. I just think the crowd just turned, which was a bit bizarre. But they're entitled to voice their opinions however they want. But I think it wasn't over the top in terms of the reaction of the crowd. I mean, there was a few boos but it was a good darts crowd, as I like to say. Very traditional, where they respected the players whilst they were playing.
I think with the likes of Luke Littler and Luke Humphreys and Van Gogh, and these players are all like very quick, very rhythmic in terms of how they play. And when you get these players that have a bit of a slower sort of approach, I think the crowds like nowadays more they're not maybe used to it as much. So is that a factor? Maybe I don't know, but in like going back, I just don't see the problem with it. I think people are just going to have to get used to that.
Yeah, I think it's just impatience because it's the TikTok generation, maybe where because you can just scroll down to the next video. People want that rat-a-tat-tat game where it's quick and it's explosive, and if someone wants to take the time, it's like it's their impatience, it's the crowd's impatience of wanting to get on with it. So, but fair play to Dimitri, he played some wonderful stuff all weekend, and as we said, getting his second PDC major. Congratulations.
And his first one with the crowd.
Yes, indeed. First one with the crowd. That's what he might not have been used to playing in front of. It's his first final in a crowd. So but played well.
Played very well.
So with the PDC news all done, we go on to the MODUS Super Series. And that takes us to the MODUS Super Series. And again, a fantastic week of darts there in Portsmouth.
Absolutely. Reece Robinson, the first winner on Series 7. He defeated Jamie Kelling in the final 4-3. So I think with another final, which literally goes to a last leg decider. And he's the first player in this series that will be taking part in the Champions Week.
Yes, and as we said, with the standard of the Premier League improving, the standard of the MODUS Super Series is improving week on week. And, for these amateur players and for players who may have lost their tour card, I mean, there's plenty of opportunities, at good money. I mean, £5,000 to the winner of for the weekly winners, and then 20 grand for the series winners. That's a fair old hump of money for the amateur game.
Absolutely, and I think when you look at the format of the competition, I think when you're just playing like 5 games a day on the main stage in front of a camera as well, quite a short format as well, I think it benefits. So you're just getting that match practice in every time, and even if you don't even play in the Group A and you go in either Group B or you play in Group C, you're still getting 2 days guaranteed. And I think looking at the format, it just benefits players.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
And with the standard also, you're getting all the meme darts and the great highlights. I mean, the 120 with 20 bull, that was a really good outshot, and you just get all these really good highlights which showcases not just the players themselves but of the standard of the amateur game, which is as we've said, fastly improving quickly.
You do, and I think one player, when you look at last week as well, in terms of a player that you thought might have won last week, Shane McGurk, he had a very, very strong opening 3 days in Group A. He was qualified from Group A on the Wednesday, so he had the 3 days to prepare for it, and just falling quite short in the semi-final. He did lose to the eventual winner as well, so that's sort of like a silver lining for him. But it may be, obviously you think that Shane McGurk may have won because of obviously what happened in Group A, but it just shows again that you can't predict this MODUS Super Series at times.
No, predict at your peril. Thank God we're not doing the MODUS Predictor League, because all of them are fantastic players and all deserve to be there. And it's showing with the class, and the weekly winners really deserve it. And to get that place in the final, it's extra incentive, and it shows the form of players going into then other tournaments on the WDF, on the ADC, and the PDC Challenge Tour.
You do, and with the ADC and the opportunities you can get in terms of qualifying for the tournament through the vault competitions, that's just another example of all the of what's out there now. And even though the vault events are not like televised or streamed, etc., again, that format will benefit players, because I think the look at in terms of the individual performance, instead of like when we were younger, it was more like county sort of based.
Yeah.
I think it is going to benefit in the long run. You're going to see more and more players just producing these ridiculous averages. And like even some of the players, like I'm seeing people throw 90 averages and I've never heard of who they are, but it just shows that you've still got, if you've got the quality to play, you deserve to be on the stage.
Yeah, and it's a comfort level. For some of them, that first week they may struggle that first week when they're there, and if they then get another invite back, they know what they're anticipating, so they just seem to relax more into it, and then that's where they start building up the games. I mean, look at Rob Rickwood. His first week, he had a few highlights in that first week, but may have not performed to his best. But then he started becoming a regular, as it were, and can play some really good darts.
Are you going to look to try and get to the MODUS Super Series at some point, AJ?
It's on the list. It's on the list, but we've got to, you've got to earn your spots there. There's no gimmies. You've got to earn it. And for me, good runs in ADC events and beyond is the way forward.
Do you think the ADC is the best route in terms of getting onto the MODUS Super Series?
Yes, essentially. They've got a good formats and it's good. You've got tournaments all over the place, and with the Winmau tour starting very soon, that's the best way forward. That was the news over the week, but in the WDF we have an exciting weekend of darts. One of my favourites and one of the highlights of the WDF, the Isle of Man Darts Festival.
We do. I think this year we've got Bo Reeves going in as a two-time defending champion with both the Isle of Man Classic and the Isle of Man Masters. Barry Copeland won last year, and Luke Littler, who I presume is not going to be there this year, but he also
he's got bigger fish to fry.
He does have bigger fish to fry,
or bigger kebabs to eat, whichever way you want to look at it. So the Isle of Man Classic, one of my personal favourites. I've been there many times. Wish I was there this year, but there's always next year. But I mean, for the prizes, I mean, the £5,000 to the men's winners of the Classic and the Open, and then £1,200 for the ladies, and then a good breakdown to the last 16 and last 32 respectively. But this weekend, it's more than just winners and losers. I mean, it is a festival of darts. You have events not just at the Villa Marina, which is the main venue for the tournaments, but around the island and around in Douglas Centre. There seems to be smaller darts tournaments run by the respective venues all over the place.
What do you make of the Isle of Man weekend in comparison to the other competitions held within the WDF over the year?
You get a lot more entries, especially from the northwest, because that's the local hub, so to speak. For a lot of players who are there, it is a holiday with darts thrown in, which is absolutely fine. That's it gets the numbers in, it gets the prize money up, and people can have a go. And from there, you can get a few people having runs into the last 32, last 16, etc. I remember my first year. I wasn't expecting much because I didn't really know much, what to expect, and I had a really good run up to the last 32. Unfortunately, got beat by a really good player who went on. I think he went on to the semi-final. But you do get them chances to play against seeded players, and for a pub player, essentially, going and having a go and having a game against Martin Adams or having a game against whomever at the time, it's it then creates them talking points, back at the pub the week after. It's like, oh, went there and played against whoever. And it just creates them memories for the darts players who then ultimately go again, have another bite of the cherry. And, for some, it's a really good starting point for their darts careers, because they might not think they're a good player. They just think they're as they said, a pub player. But you have a good run at the Isle of Man and you think, oh, I might get used to this, might get better, and they might just go a little bit further afield, and careers that are started from them moments.
Absolutely. I think when you say it's a competition where you can be playing the seeded players who are maybe doing a lot better on the WDF circuit, if you beat one of these top players as a pub player or as an amateur player, you're obviously going to take confidence from it. That's not just with amateur players, that's just with any dart player in general. And I think obviously, I looked at the seeds for the tournament. It's a silver ranked tournament as well. So again, yes, the need to be going deep in these competitions if you want to be qualifying for the leg side at the end of the year, still very important. But again, I'm very much looking forward to seeing what this tournament can bring this weekend, and the winners and some of the matches that have been produced in this tournament in the past. Again, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm sure there's going to be a few games this year which are going to live up to that.
Absolutely. I mean, I've got a few friends going over from Swinton Way. I've got Liam and I've got Andy going over, but a really good friend who's coming over for the festival is Jeff Smith, coming all the way from Canada. And look out pairs tournaments, because him and the Demolition Man are going to be wreaking havoc.
2 ex-tour card holders in a pairing team. That's always got good signs going forward.
Yeah, and it shows what kind of event this is. It's a long history event, and to have your name on that trophy where you've got John Lowell's, Eric Bristow's, and the like on there, and to have your name on that trophy is a massive point.
Absolutely, the competition's been going since 1986, so a bit of prestige in terms of the tournament as well.
Massively. But to all those going to the Isle of Man, I wish you all the best of luck.
Same here.
So there we have a preview of the Isle of Man Darts Festival. And as we said, good luck to everyone there. But we've also got a preview coming up now. That's the Premier League Predictor League. So, as we said last week, the results are in, and going to the points, it was not a lot to talk about on the points for the Predictor League. The first bagel for yourself, Harry. There was with the results going the way they did, there was no points for you, and the only 2 points for me with choosing Luke Littler over Michael Smith, which just increases my lead slightly, and I say very slightly. Harry on 21 points and myself on 26. But the Premier League steam train goes into Brighton this week for week 5, and another 4 matches which look very enticing and very hard to predict.
It shows as well, when you said that I had a bagel last week, it's not easy predicting these every single week. You can, as we say, the games are always very, very close, and it's a coin toss. And unfortunately for me, I predicted all 4 games last week on the wrong side of it. So it is what it is.
It is indeed what it is. And but we need to decide what this is going to be. So first game on in Brighton is world champion Luke Humphries versus former world champion Gerwyn Price. Who have you got and why?
Okay, I'm going to go with the world champion on this one. I think Gerwyn Price losing in the opening round, was it at the weekends of the UK Open against Martin Schindler. I do think Price will bounce back in the Premier League. I'm not worried about that. I think he will pick up the wins again, but I'm going to back the world number 1 here. He had a very good run at the weekend. I thought it through in my head. The last 5 majors in the PDC, he's been in the final of 4 of them, and I think and he missed darts as well in that final, so he could have won 4 out of the 5. But looking back on the Premier League, I think his time in terms of him winning a night. It will happen sooner rather than later. I don't know if he's going to win the night yet this week, but I'm going to go with him to win 6-4 against Gerwyn Price.
Interesting. I've gone for the same results winning wise as Luke Humphries, but I just think it's all dependent on the crowd and how Gerwyn reacts to the crowd, and but Luke, he does him, and yes, he was unfortunate in the UK Open final. He had a chance to win it, but just missed out. But I think he's coming back to his clinical best, and that the action, the throw, everything just seems to be going well for him at the moment. I'm going to go one extra. I'm going to say he's going to win 6-3 to Luke Humphries, which then takes us on to game 2. Again, going back to UK Open history, had that very first encounter where Michael van Gerwen hit 17 perfect darts. I mean, I'm not going to say there's going to be anything like that, but Rob Cross versus MVG, again, a really tough game to play. They're both playing in, good standard, they're both in a good form. I'm going to go with Rob Cross just nicking it somehow against MVG. I'm going to go with 6-5.
I think this is. I did say in the earlier on in the episode that I think Rob Cross will have a bit of a home support in this week because obviously Hastings, lives in Hastings. Hastings not far from Brighton at all. I think it's the closest venue in terms of all the 16 arenas that they're going to be playing in. Or actually 17, including the playoffs. But I'm also going to go with Rob Cross to win. I think that performance last week, the 109 average, ridiculous. And I think obviously he ran out of steam a bit at the UK Open against Ricky Evans, but again, he had some fantastic performances before that. I think he had 105 average before that semi-final. And the shorter format, I think, is probably going to suit again. And I'm going to go with 6-4 to Rob Cross. Interesting.
And then the next game is, again, another battle of the Northwest with Stockport's Nathan Aspinall versus Warrington's Luke Littler. Again, the form of Nathan winning last week. I mean, Luke, he's having a lot of semi-finals and he's came close on a couple of occasions this season already. But you've got to say he's due one, and for that reason, I'm going to be going with Luke Littler over Nathan Aspinall. And again, it's going to be that close. It's difficult to call, so I'm keeping it simple and going 6-5.
You must be proud as well the fact that there's 3 players in the Premier League that are all based around the Northwest.
It's the powerhouse. It's the darting powerhouse, the Northwest of England.
It certainly is. And looking at this game, I think this is a game of 2 players that Luke Littler's only lost one. I want to say one quarterfinal out of the first 5 nights played, and Aspinall is in really good form at the minute in the Premier League. He's taken 8 points in the last 2 weeks, so that's definitely good going. And in terms of my prediction this week, I think I'm going to go with Nathan Aspinall to win. I do, and I'm also going to go with the same scoreline as you because it's all the games are so close at the minute. I'm going to go with it to be 6-5, and it's so hard to not do that because it's actually really hard predicting it when it's when you say 6-2, 6-1, because when we say that, the chances are the game is going to be closer than we think.
Yes, and as we said, and we say week in, week out, these games are really tough to call, and it's not down to anything except of the form of the players being so high, and then you put in the best 8 players against each other. You can't predict it because of the standard, and it's literally one leg in it most times.
Absolutely, and I think winning the bullseye before the game as well is vital because obviously with it being the short format, and obviously these are the top 8 players in the world, having the throw and having to. I think I've seen Van Gerwen on many occasions hold his throw 6 times and win a game 6-5.
Yeah, and that's the main reason why these games are so close is because as we said in previous weeks, you're looking at 15 darts a leg. unless you can bang in a 12-dart leg, you're still throwing at 100 average, and if you're both throwing at 100 average, it's going to be 6-5 one way or the other. It's just one slip of a double, or and the other one takes advantage. That is it. We are talking these matches are decided literally on one dart being missed or hit.
Absolutely.
And pulling in the final game of the quarterfinals, you've got week 1 winner Michael Smith versus Peter Wright. And Harry, who have you got and why?
I'm going to go with Michael Smith to win this. I think Peter Wright, don't get me wrong, he played very well at the weekend. I think that performance against Andrew Gilding in the UK Open, that was ridiculous. 11 dart leg to open the match, and he was the defending champion of the tournament, and Peter Wright absolutely schooled him from start to finish. To be honest, it's harsh on Gilding because he had a very good game in the match before against Josh Payne on the main stage. And he did actually throw more 180s in that match, Andrew Gilding as well, despite defeat, but he just couldn't get going. But this game, I think, shorter format, Michael Smith will want to bounce back after what happened against Luke Woodhouse. It was a last leg decider defeat. And I'm going to go with Michael Smith to win 6-4.
I'm looking at this and I'm going the opposite way. The form of Peter Wright is rising and rising, and I'm not discrediting Michael Smith in any way, shape, or form. But since he's won that first week back in Cardiff, the form is very high, but I just think Peter Wright is just really getting into the swing of things now, and with the setup he's got and with the averages he's putting in, I'm going to say Peter Wright 6-4 with the breaker throw.
I can see that.
So that just leaves us with the weekly winner. Obviously Nathan Aspinall winning last week, but Harry, who have you got and why for week 5?
I think I'm going to go with there to be a new night winner like last week. Aspinall obviously winning last week. I'm going to go with Rob Cross this week to win. I'm not saying it's maybe the fact that he's got the home support that could be a factor, but I don't know. I think the darts he's playing at the minute is up there, and he's obviously reached a final on the Premier League so far in one of the nights. So I just think that maybe his time to go one better could be this week. He's playing some very, very good stuff. He played well at the UK Open, obviously a highest average last week out of anyone, and obviously the race for the playoffs is heating up a bit more now, and a night win is very important in terms of putting your points onto the board. So I'm going to go with Rob Cross.
Interesting. Looking at the brackets and the way it falls, with the semi-finals and the final, I'm looking at Luke Littler winning this. I think it'd be the best. It'd be the best chance of him winning the week, and with him being the face of best cereal now, I think it's the best way to introduce it.
Saw that advert, 3 bullseyes with it. Without even looking.
Yeah, to say the sport of darts has grown is unbelievable, to the point where a darts player is now the face of a breakfast cereal. That is a sentence I've never thought I'd say in my life, never mind in the recent weeks. But Luke is bringing new eyes to the game, and his form is really good. He's always there or thereabouts, and with the Premier Leagues, as I said, he's never lost the first round game. He's had a couple of chances in finals, but I think this is the one where he makes his mark in the Premier League and wins the week.
He'll know that he needs to put points on the boards in terms of reaching the playoffs. But like last week again at the UK Open, the showman sort of aspect in him came out. That 120 finish, 20 ball, 170 checkout as well with the little fish seller reading in the fish at the end, and then James Wade's reaction.
Yeah, I was just going to say, absolute props to James Wade. The reaction was fantastic, and Twitter blew up, with it. And but when you see something like that, you can do nothing but applaud it. I remember way back when James Wade did tops against Kevin Painter, and Kevin Painter's reaction wasn't good. But now tops is the shot. I mean, yes, granted, usually 3 darts. If you're on a ton and you hit single 20, tops, pick a target. You understand it. James Wade did it, with 3 darts in his hands and did tops. But his form was that good, and he felt I could hit it. And I can see the rationale behind it. Even if you drop below, you can go 20 double tops. And with James Wade using a stacker, but yeah, now tops is the norm, and you can see how the game has progressed. But when someone's playing well, all you can do is acknowledge it, but what a way to acknowledge it.
What do you reckon Kevin Painter's reaction would be to a Jose de Sousa type of 120 finish?
I don't think I could say what would happen without being thrown off the air. No, but that was the Premier League Predictor League, and I'd say I wish you all the best, but I'd be lying.
No, that forfeit, I'm not doing it. You need to be doing that at the end of it, not me.
So there we have this week's podcast. But before we end this week, obviously we had the sad news of the passing of legendary darts personality Tony Green. He was famous, obviously, for the game show Bullseye, but he was a commentator for the Lakeside World Championships, or the Embassy back then. And he was also a great referee for the BDO darts in its heyday.
A man that had a lot of dedication to the game, I think, for a long time. And like going back onto Bullseye, I was probably not old enough to have watched it at the time, but there was like a time when I was younger, like when I was in my GCSE time, where I was putting the 2 episodes of Bullseye on challenge for like 11 o'clock. There were like 2 episodes like back in the day, and I'd always just watch that thing. And every time when I play darts now, I always think of the 6 dart 101 challenge. And if I don't take out the 101 in 6, I'm just thinking in my head, I've got someone saying, "Here's what you could have won."
Yes. I mean, he had one of the most distinct voices in the game, obviously with Bully's prize board, being one of the main things with his one, and it was very distinctive. And for me as a kid growing up, one of the first things of darts I ever saw was Bullseye. I was of that age where and it made an imprint on my mind, and it made me subjectively want to play darts in the for the get-go, watching the amateur players and then watching the professionals with the bronze Bully, and that's what got me into darts essentially. So but obviously his one of his personal great moments was calling the first 9 darter at the Embassy in 1990 with Paul Lim, and a great piece of commentating. But he even admitted himself when he's describing the last 3 darts, and he said everyone wants to hit it, and he's playing for 52,000 pound. The way he says pounds is because he was watching the background and Jack McKenna, and he was trying to say in an Irish accent, but it was just like one of them just weird moments in his head. And he just said, every time I look back at it, he always goes, I should have just said pound instead of, the way he said pound. But what makes that moment in darts, famous is the call. Obviously the feat is the main attraction, but when you have something of that moment and hitting the double and his reaction, that's probably darts version of They Think It's All Over It is now.
I think when you've got someone that has so much passion for the game and for something that big to happen as well, you're always wanting it to be someone like Tony in terms of the one to call the special occasion, because for a fact he's got as much passion as anyone would. And obviously I don't remember him refereeing as a kid growing up, because obviously I was too young, but from what I saw, like he was always dedicated to it. He was dedicated to Bullseye. He was dedicated to what he did, and it's a shame that I never got to see this growing up.
I mean, his refereeing style was, also unique. He was very, very. The way that, I mean, watching the old clips on YouTube. I mean, I'm a massive fan of watching the old games on YouTube, not just the Embassy, but you have the old, like the Windmill and the Blackthorn Masters and the MFI, all the events that were on ITV. He was the MC or referee for. But what made me like he was so charming on the board when someone missed a big checkout. So say a 127, if they'd missed the ball, he'd call 102, but he'd say unlucky at the end. Because he wanted them moments to happen. He wanted them big calls, so then he could really go for it. And it just showed his personality that he was just a great supporter of darts. Didn't matter who the player was. He wanted them moments more for the player. Essentially, he wanted to put his stamp on that player's performance. That's how he refereed. He wanted to accentuate what the dart players were doing. It wasn't just a case of 180. I mean, some of the 180 calls, they're all unique and they're all different in their ways. But the way that Tony Green used to bellow the the 180, it made people stand up, because back then it was a rare thing because of the style of the boards with the round wires, big staples and things like that. So, but his knowledge of the game was infectious as well. He wanted to just pass on that knowledge as far and wide as he could, pass it on. And it's a tremendous loss, obviously, for us all and for the game of darts. And all we can say is we pass on our condolences to his family. Well loved and a much treasured person of the game.
Absolutely, all thoughts of mine are definitely with the friends and family of Tony Green at the minute, and it's a shame to have lost such a huge figure in the sport.
So with that, we do end this episode of the Darts World Weekly podcast. We hope you all have, wherever you're playing your games this weekend, we all wish you the very best, and may the 180s be with you. But that is game, shot, and match for this episode. I'm AJ Ermston Toft.
And I'm Harry Masterson.
And we will see you in the next round.